Rejected for her size, the mail-order bride became a lumberjack's perfect match part 2. From a young age, she had been told that her body was too round, too soft, and that no man would ever truly desire her. These words lingered in her mind, haunting her self-esteem through the years. Yet despite the constant criticism from family and society, Clara had a kind heart, a sharp mind, and a spirit that refused to break. She believed that one day someone would see past her size and value her for her character, her intelligence, and the warmth she carried in her smile. Living in a small town, opportunities to meet someone special were limited. Most of the young men she knew had either married already or were not looking for serious relationships. Feeling a mix of frustration and hope, Clara decided to explore something she had heard about in magazines and from friends: mail-order marriages. The idea sounded unusual at first, but to Clara, it was a chance to meet people she would never encounter in her tiny town. It was a new world, full of possibilities, where people sought love and companionship in a more intentional way. She spent weeks carefully preparing herself. She wrote a letter that reflected her personality, honest, thoughtful, and genuine. She chose a photograph where she was smiling warmly, not hiding behind clothes or camera angles. Every word she wrote carried her hope, her vulnerability, and her belief that love was not just about appearances. She described her hobbies, her favorite books, her dreams, and the simple joys she found in everyday life. Clara wanted someone to understand that beneath her curves, she was a person full of laughter, strength, and determination. When the responses began to arrive, she read each one carefully, imagining what meeting these men could be like. Some letters were polite but distant, others seemed kind but lacked sincerity. Then came a letter from Thomas, a man living in a nearby state. His words were smooth, flattering, and carried a sense of charm that made Clara's heart beat faster. He spoke of wanting a partner to share life's joys, to travel together, and to build a home filled with love. Clara felt an immediate connection and dared to hope. The two began writing more frequently, each letter growing more personal than the last. They shared childhood memories, hopes for the future, and even their fears. Clara found herself imagining life with Thomas, quiet mornings drinking coffee together, evenings laughing by a fireplace, perhaps even building a small family. She told herself that she deserved happiness, that this was her chance to be loved just as she was. The anticipation of meeting Thomas in person became a light that guided her through her days. Finally, the moment arrived. Clara packed her belongings carefully, choosing a dress that she felt confident in. Her hands trembled with excitement and nervousness as she boarded the train to meet Thomas. The journey was long, giving her time to imagine every possible scenario, every conversation, every smile. She rehearsed introductions in her mind, imagining how she would respond to his words, how she would present herself with confidence. When she arrived at the station, her heart raced. She scanned the crowd for Thomas, looking for the man who had captured her imagination through letters. And then she saw him, tall, well-dressed, with an air of confidence that made her feel both excited and nervous. He smiled, waving her over, and for a moment Clara felt a rush of hope and joy. She walked toward him, her steps quick but steady, her mind filled with all the dreams she had nurtured for months. But the moment quickly shifted. As Thomas looked at her, his smile faltered. His eyes narrowed, and Clara immediately felt a cold wave of judgment wash over her. The man who had written so kindly now looked disappointed, his demeanor distant. Clara's heart sank. Words she had feared all her life about her size, her appearance, flashed in her mind. She realized that despite her confidence, despite the love she had poured into her letters, she was being judged solely by her looks. Thomas's voice was polite but firm. He told Clara that she was not what he expected, that he had imagined someone different, someone slimmer. Clara felt a mix of disbelief, hurt, and anger. The rejection was swift, leaving no room for explanation or understanding. She tried to explain herself, to tell him that her letters had been honest, that she was proud of who she was, but he had already turned away, leaving her standing alone at the station. The train ride home was quiet, filled with tears Clara could not stop. She thought about the countless times she had been judged, the years of whispers and comments that told her she was not enough. Yet, as the landscape blurred past the window, something inside her shifted. She realized that this rejection, painful as it was, did not define her. Thomas's inability to see her worth was a reflection of his own limitations, not a measure of her value. Clara understood, for the first time with clarity, that she could not let someone else's shallow expectations determine her happiness. Back home, she spent days reflecting on what had happened. The familiar streets of her town, once comforting, now seemed small and limiting. She wanted more than pity or acceptance based on appearances. She wanted a life that celebrated her strengths, her courage, and her spirit. Clara began to consider other possibilities, thinking beyond the conventional paths she had always been told to follow. She remembered stories of women who had traveled far from home, taken on new challenges, and discovered freedom in unexpected places. With a newfound determination, Clara made a decision. She would leave her small town and seek a place where she could be valued for her skills, her heart, and her character. She would embrace a life of adventure, work, and independence, even if it meant stepping into a world completely unknown to her. The rejection she had endured was no longer a wound, it was a catalyst. It ignited a fire within her, a desire to prove to herself, not anyone else, that she was capable, strong, and worthy of love that truly mattered. Clara began researching towns where opportunities for work and self-reliance were abundant. She read stories of lumber towns in the northern mountains, where people respected hard work, honesty, and determination more than looks. The rugged landscapes, the promise of independence, and the chance to build something meaningful with her own hands appealed to her deeply. She packed her belongings once more, this time with a sense of purpose and excitement rather than fear. Each item she chose represented a part of her identity, her books for knowledge, her journals for reflection, and her tools for the work she was ready to learn. As Clara boarded the train for her new destination, she felt a mixture of nervousness and exhilaration. She watched the familiar countryside fade behind her, feeling both sadness and relief. Sadness for the life she was leaving behind, for the dreams that had not come true, and relief for the freedom to create her own path. For the first time, she felt in control of her story. No longer defined by the rejection of a single man or the judgments of society, she embraced the adventure ahead with courage. Clara knew the road would not be easy. The mountains were harsh, the work demanding, and the people unfamiliar. But she carried within her a resilience that had been forged through years of judgment and self-doubt. Each challenge she had faced had prepared her for this moment. A life where her size, her appearance, and societal expectations could no longer dictate her future. She allowed herself to dream once more, not of fairy tale romance, but of genuine connection, respect, and personal achievement. By the time the train arrived at the small mountain town, Clara felt a quiet strength she had never known. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of pine and the promise of new beginnings. The mountains stood tall, a reminder that life could be challenging but also breathtakingly beautiful. Clara stepped onto the platform, her heart steady, her mind open, and her spirit ready. She was determined to prove to herself that she could thrive, that she could build a life full of purpose, and perhaps, in time, find love that recognized her true worth. And with that determination, Clara took her first steps into a new chapter of her life, one defined not by rejection, but by courage, resilience, and the unwavering belief that she deserved more than society's narrow standards. Clara stepped off the train, taking in the fresh mountain air. The town was small but full of life. Pine trees surrounded the streets, and the mountains rose like silent guardians in the distance. The air smelled of wood, earth, and freedom. She had never felt anything like it before. It was a place where appearances mattered less than hard work and honesty. Clara felt a quiet thrill of hope mixed with nervousness. She had no idea what awaited her, but for the first time in her life, she felt that she was truly starting her own story. Her first stop was a small inn, run by a kind widow named Mrs. Peterson. The inn was modest, with wooden floors and a cozy fireplace, but it had a warmth that made Clara feel welcome. Mrs. Peterson had lived in the mountains all her life, and she immediately sensed Clara's mixture of excitement and apprehension. Over a cup of tea, Clara shared her story, how she had been rejected for her size, how she had decided to leave her old life behind, and how she wanted a chance to prove herself in a place where people valued hard work. Mrs. Peterson listened carefully, nodding as she poured the tea. "These mountains don't care about looks," she said. "They care about strength, honesty, and heart. If you're willing to work, you'll find people here who respect you for who you are, not what you look like." Her words gave Clara courage. She felt like someone finally understood her, someone who believed in the potential she had always carried inside her. The next morning, Clara went to the logging camp at the edge of town. The camp was bustling with activity. Men swung axes, hauled logs, and worked in teams to move heavy timber. The sound of chopping wood echoed through the forest, mixing with the laughter and shouts of the workers. Clara felt a pang of nervousness. She was small compared to the burly men around her, and she knew the work would be hard. But she also felt a spark of determination she had never felt before. She had come here to prove herself, and she would not turn back. Clara approached the camp supervisor, a stern man named Mr. Harrison. He looked her up and down, clearly skeptical. "You sure you want to work here?" he asked. "This isn't easy work for anyone, let alone someone your size." Clara met his gaze and nodded. "I'm willing to try, I want to learn." Mr. Harrison studied her for a moment, then shrugged. "All right. You can start with the lighter tasks and see how it goes. Don't expect anyone to go easy on you." Her first days were exhausting. She carried small logs, stacked wood, and cleaned the camp. Every movement required strength and coordination she had never needed before. Her muscles ached, her hands blistered, and at the end of the day, she was covered in dirt and sweat. Some of the men snickered at her struggles, whispering that she wouldn't last a week. But Clara refused to let their doubts discourage her. She reminded herself that she had survived rejection before, and she could survive this too. Then came Jack. He was one of the most experienced lumberjacks in the camp, tall, strong, but with a gentle presence. He noticed Clara's determination and decided to help her. "Don't worry about the heavy logs yet," he said one morning. "Start with technique, balance, swing, and timing. The strength will come." Jack showed her how to hold the axe properly, how to swing with precision rather than brute force, and how to carry logs without hurting herself. He didn't mock her or judge her. Instead, he encouraged her, praised her small victories, and patiently guided her through the challenges. Clara quickly realized that learning from Jack was making a huge difference. Her confidence grew as she mastered the skills needed to survive in the camp. She learned how to chop wood efficiently, how to navigate the uneven forest terrain, and how to work in rhythm with the men. Slowly, she earned their respect. The men who had doubted her began to see her not as a woman who was too small or too soft, but as someone dedicated, capable, and determined. Every successful day of work strengthened her body and her spirit, and Clara began to feel proud of herself in a way she never had before. Life in the camp was not just about work. The men shared stories of their lives, taught her survival skills, and included her in their routines. Clara discovered that the camaraderie among the workers was unlike anything she had experienced in her hometown. They respected each other because of effort, honesty, and loyalty, not appearances. She learned to cook hearty meals over a fire, repair tools, and even read the forest for signs of wildlife. The mountains became her teacher, shaping her into someone resilient, resourceful, and self-reliant. Despite her growing confidence, Clara could not ignore the loneliness she sometimes felt. The work was hard, the days long, and she missed the connection she had imagined with Thomas. Yet, in these moments of solitude, she reminded herself why she had come. She was building a life of her own choosing, one that valued her strength, intelligence, and determination. Slowly, she began to enjoy her independence, understanding that being alone did not mean being lonely. She could be complete and whole on her own, and the right companionship, if it came, would be a bonus rather than a necessity. As the weeks passed, Clara's friendship with Jack deepened. He respected her determination and admired her perseverance. They often worked together, side by side, sharing laughter, stories, and quiet moments of understanding. Jack never judged her for her past or her appearance. He valued her for her courage, her humor, and the effort she put into everything she did. Clara felt a warmth she had never felt with Thomas, a sense of being seen for who she truly was, rather than for an image someone had in their mind. One afternoon, after a particularly long day of chopping and hauling timber, Clara and Jack sat on a fallen log, watching the sun dip behind the mountains. "You've come a long way," Jack said quietly. "Most people would have quit weeks ago," Clara smiled, feeling proud and grateful. "I had too," she replied. "I wanted to prove to myself that I could do this, that I was capable of more than I realized." Jack nodded, and for a moment, they simply enjoyed the silence, the beauty of the forest, and the satisfaction of a hard day's work. Clara also discovered that life in the mountains taught her more than just physical strength. She learned patience, humility, and the value of community. She realized that success was not measured by how others viewed her, but by how she felt about herself and the effort she put into every day. She learned to trust herself, to make decisions, and to face challenges head-on. Each log she chopped, each task she completed became a symbol of her growth, her courage, and her refusal to let past rejections define her future. By the end of her first month at the camp, Clara was no longer the timid woman who had arrived in the mountains. She had grown stronger both physically and emotionally. The men respected her, the forest had become a place of comfort, and Jack had become a trusted friend and companion. Clara began to realize that she had found something she had never known before, a place where she belonged, where she was valued for who she truly was, and where her strength and determination could shine. One evening, as Clara sat by the fire in the camp, she reflected on how far she had come. The rejection she had faced from Thomas now seemed like a distant memory, a stepping stone that had led her to this life. She understood that love and acceptance did not come from fitting someone else's idea of beauty, but from being true to herself and finding people who respected her for her character and spirit. Clara felt a sense of peace, knowing that she was building a life based on authenticity, courage, and hard work. Clara's journey in the mountains was only beginning. She had faced rejection, self-doubt, and fear, but she had emerged stronger and more confident. She was no longer defined by the opinions of others, but by her own choices, effort, and determination. And though the future was uncertain, Clara knew that she was ready to face whatever challenges came her way. With the mountains as her guide, the camp as her community, and Jack as her friend, she felt prepared to embrace the life she had always dreamed of. A life of freedom, respect, and true self-worth. Clara woke up early, as she had every day since arriving at the logging camp. The sun had barely touched the peaks of the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and earth, and she felt a deep sense of gratitude for being there. Life in the mountains had transformed her in ways she had never imagined. She was stronger, more confident, and capable of handling tasks that once seemed impossible. Yet, she knew that the real challenge was not only physical but also emotional. Living among people who had grown up with this rugged life required more than strength. It required patience, understanding, and resilience. That morning, the camp received a new shipment of timber that needed to be sorted and processed. Clara joined the men, working with focus and determination. Her hands were steady, her movements precise, and her energy was fueled by the satisfaction of contributing meaningfully. The other workers, who had once doubted her abilities, now looked at her with genuine respect. Even the men who had whispered that she would not last had begun to recognize her dedication. Clara felt a sense of pride that was different from the fleeting satisfaction of being praised. It came from knowing that she had earned her place through effort and perseverance. Jack was there beside her as usual, offering guidance and support without patronizing her. "Remember, Clara," he said, "it's not just about strength. Watch the grain of the wood, understand its weight, and move with it. Work smart, not just hard." Clara nodded, appreciating his advice. She realized that she had grown not only in physical strength but also in skill and knowledge. Each day at the camp was a lesson, and she was learning faster than she had expected. Despite the satisfaction of hard work, life in the mountains was not without difficulties. One afternoon, a sudden storm rolled in from the north. Dark clouds covered the sky, and wind whipped through the trees, sending loose branches crashing to the ground. The workers had to secure the camp, protect the timber, and ensure that no one was injured. Clara felt fear, but she refused to let it control her. She moved quickly, following the instructions of the supervisors, helping wherever she could. Her agility and focus allowed her to reach places the men could not, and her courage inspired others to keep working despite the storm. By the time the rain began to fall, the camp was safe, and Clara felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond physical labor. It was the triumph of courage over fear. That evening, Clara sat by the fire, drenched from the rain but filled with a quiet satisfaction. She realized that life in the mountains was teaching her resilience in ways she had never imagined. She thought about the rejection she had faced from Thomas and the pain she had felt. Compared to the challenges she now faced, that rejection seemed like a distant memory, a minor obstacle in the greater journey of her life. She understood that every experience, no matter how painful, had prepared her for this moment. giving her the strength, determination, and perspective needed to thrive. As days turned into weeks, Clara continued to grow in confidence and skill. She could now handle heavier logs, navigate the forest with ease, and work alongside the men without feeling intimidated. Her physical strength had increased, but so had her sense of independence. She no longer relied on anyone to validate her worth. She measured herself by her own progress and effort. The mountains had become a place of transformation, shaping her into a woman who was capable, resourceful, and proud of her achievements. Clara's relationship with Jack deepened naturally as they spent more time together. They worked in tandem, sharing techniques, encouraging each other, and exchanging stories of their pasts. Jack never judged her for her past experiences, nor did he comment on her appearance. Instead, he valued her courage, her intelligence, and her willingness to learn. Clara found herself opening up to him in ways she had never done with anyone else. She shared her dreams, her fears, and her hopes for the future. Jack listened, offering support and understanding without trying to control or direct her choices. It was a friendship built on mutual respect, trust, and a shared sense of purpose. One day, the camp received news that a neighboring logging crew was struggling to move a large shipment of timber through a particularly steep part of the forest. The supervisors asked for volunteers to help. Clara immediately raised her hand. She wanted to test herself further to see how far she had come since the day she arrived. The journey was treacherous. Steep slopes, loose rocks, and heavy timber made every step dangerous. Yet Clara remained focused, carefully navigating the terrain and assisting wherever she could. Her determination and skill impressed the neighboring crew, who welcomed her help and praised her abilities. During the expedition, Clara encountered a challenge that tested both her physical and mental strength. A log had slipped and blocked a narrow path, and the crew needed to remove it quickly to prevent accidents. Clara assessed the situation, calculated the best way to move the log, and coordinated with the other workers to lift it safely. Her quick thinking and leadership under pressure earned her respect from everyone present, including Jack, who smiled proudly at her accomplishment. Clara realized that she was no longer just a worker learning from others. She was someone capable of making decisions, solving problems, and taking initiative. Life in the mountains also taught Clara the importance of community. She noticed how everyone relied on each other, how respect was earned through effort, and how compassion and cooperation were valued above all else. She joined in shared meals, helped care for the injured, and offered support to those who struggled with the hard work. In return, the community welcomed her, teaching her new skills, sharing stories of their lives, and including her in traditions that had been passed down for generations. Clara felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before, a feeling that she was part of something greater than herself. Despite the challenges, Clara found moments of joy in the simple pleasures of mountain life. She watched sunsets from the top of ridges, listened to the songs of birds in the early morning, and marveled at the beauty of the forest after a rainstorm. These small moments reminded her that life was not only about work and struggle, but also about appreciating the world around her. She learned to slow down, to notice the details, and to find happiness in the present moment. The mountains had become a teacher, guiding her toward patience, gratitude, and mindfulness. Clara also reflected on her past experiences with Thomas and the world she had left behind. She realized that rejection, while painful, had led her to this place of growth and opportunity. She understood that her worth was not determined by someone else's expectations, but by her own choices, effort, and integrity. The mountains had shown her that strength came in many forms, not just physical, but emotional, mental, and moral. She was learning to value herself in ways she never had before, embracing her abilities, her courage, and her heart. As Clara's skills and confidence grew, so did her bond with Jack. They began to share more than work. They shared hopes for the future, personal dreams, and even moments of quiet vulnerability. Clara realized that she had never experienced such genuine companionship, someone who valued her for who she truly was, without judgment or expectation. Jack's presence was comforting, inspiring, and motivating. He encouraged her to continue learning, to push her limits, and to trust in her own abilities. Clara found herself looking forward to their conversations, their shared tasks, and the unspoken understanding that had developed between them. One evening, after a long day of work, Clara and Jack sat by the fire, watching the stars appear in the night sky. The mountains were quiet, except for the occasional rustle of wildlife and the crackle of the fire. Clara felt a sense of peace she had never known. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from rejection and self-doubt to resilience and accomplishment. She realized that every step, every challenge, and every lesson had shaped her into a stronger, wiser, and more confident woman. The mountains had not only tested her but also revealed her true potential. Clara understood that life in the mountains was not just about survival. It was about growth, connection, and discovering one's own strength. She had faced fear, pain, and doubt, yet she had emerged stronger and more capable than she had ever imagined. She knew that the journey ahead would continue to bring challenges, but she felt ready to face them. With the support of the community, the guidance of Jack, and the strength she had cultivated within herself, Clara was prepared to embrace whatever came next. By the end of Part 3, Clara had transformed in remarkable ways. She was no longer the shy, uncertain woman who had been rejected for her size. She was strong, skilled, and confident. She had earned respect through her effort, formed meaningful relationships, and discovered the joy of independence and self-reliance. Most importantly, she had learned to value herself, not for how others perceived her, but for who she truly was. Clara's journey was far from over, but she had already proven that courage, determination, and heart could overcome even the deepest fears and challenges. The days in the mountains had begun to feel like a rhythm, each morning bringing new challenges, and each evening a sense of accomplishment. Clara had grown accustomed to the hard work, the unpredictable weather, and the demanding routines of the logging camp. Yet she knew that life in the mountains was more than physical labor. It was about learning, adapting, and proving to herself that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. Every log she lifted, every tree she chopped, and every mile she walked through the rugged terrain strengthened not only her body but also her spirit. One morning, as Clara prepared for another day of work, she noticed a sense of tension in the camp. A neighboring logging crew had come to the mountains with plans to take over some of the best timber areas, creating a quiet rivalry between the two groups. The competition was not hostile, but it was intense. Each crew wanted to prove their skill, endurance, and teamwork. Clara felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had already faced challenges she never thought she could overcome, but this new test would push her even further. It was a chance to show not only her own abilities, but also the strength of her camp as a community. Clara and Jack were assigned to lead a small team to navigate a particularly difficult section of the forest. The trees were thick, the ground uneven, and the logs heavy. Clara felt a twinge of doubt for the first time in weeks, wondering if she could keep up with the men who had been working in the mountains for years. Jack noticed her hesitation and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've come a long way, Clara. Trust yourself. You know more than you think." His words reminded her of how far she had already come. She nodded, taking a deep breath, and stepped forward with determination. As they worked through the forest, Clara encountered challenges that tested both her physical strength and her quick thinking. One of the logs had become wedged between two trees, creating a dangerous situation. Clara assessed the problem, considering the best way to move it without risking injury. She coordinated with the team, giving clear instructions and assisting where she could. With careful effort, they managed to dislodge the log safely. Her leadership in that moment earned the respect of not only her team, but also the neighboring crew, who watched in admiration as Clara guided the operation with confidence and skill. The experience taught Clara an important lesson. Leadership was not about size, appearance, or authority, but about knowledge, courage, and the ability to inspire others. She realized that her journey in the mountains was shaping her into a person who could face challenges with clarity and composure. Each task, no matter how difficult, became an opportunity to grow, to prove herself, and to contribute meaningfully to her community. She felt a sense of pride that came not from recognition or praise, but from knowing she had acted with integrity and capability. Life in the mountains also deepened Clara's relationship with Jack. They spent long hours working together, sharing not only techniques for handling the timber, but also stories from their pasts. Jack revealed details about his childhood in the mountains, the hardships he had endured, and the lessons he had learned from his family and community. Clara listened with fascination, feeling a growing bond with him that went beyond friendship. She admired his strength, kindness, and wisdom, and she felt a sense of safety and understanding in his presence that she had never experienced before. One afternoon, after completing a particularly grueling day of work, Clara and Jack decided to explore a trail that led to a hidden waterfall deep in the forest. The path was narrow and winding, with roots and rocks that demanded careful attention. Clara felt exhilaration mixed with caution. She had faced countless challenges in the camp, but exploring the untouched beauty of the mountains was a different kind of adventure. The sound of rushing water grew louder as they approached, and when they finally reached the waterfall, Clara was struck by its beauty. The water cascaded over rocks, sparkling in the sunlight, and mist danced in the air. It was a moment of pure wonder and serenity, a reminder of the natural beauty that surrounded her every day. As they sat near the waterfall, Jack turned to Clara. "You've changed so much since you arrived here," he said softly. "I've watched you grow, learn, and become someone stronger and more capable than you ever imagined. I'm proud of you." Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest. It was the first time someone had acknowledged her growth in such a personal and heartfelt way. She realized that her journey was not just about proving herself to the camp or surviving the mountains, but about discovering her own strength and self-worth. The following weeks brought new challenges that tested Clara's resilience even further. A sudden cold snap hit the mountains, making the work more difficult and the days longer. Snow began to fall, covering the forest floor and making paths slippery and treacherous. Clara had to adapt quickly, learning to navigate in harsh conditions while ensuring that her team remained safe. She found herself relying on skills she had developed over the past months: balance, observation, and problem-solving. Each successful day in the snow reinforced her confidence and her belief in her own abilities. During one particularly challenging day, a minor accident occurred when a log slipped and threatened to fall on a worker. Clara reacted instinctively, shouting a warning and helping to divert the log safely. The incident could have been dangerous, but her quick thinking prevented any harm. The camp recognized her bravery and composure under pressure, and even the skeptical men who had doubted her early on offered words of respect and admiration. Clara felt a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing that she had contributed not only through physical labor, but also through her intelligence, alertness, and courage. Despite the physical challenges, Clara found moments of joy and reflection. She appreciated the camaraderie of the camp, the shared laughter during meals, and the simple satisfaction of completing a hard day's work. She found beauty in the changing seasons, the sound of birds in the morning, and the quiet nights under a star-filled sky. The mountains had become more than a place to work. They were a place of learning, growth, and self-discovery. Clara felt a profound connection to the land, to the community, and to the person she was becoming. Her bond with Jack continued to grow in meaningful ways. They shared more than work. They shared dreams, fears, and quiet moments of understanding. Jack's support was unwavering, his respect genuine, and his presence comforting. Clara realized that she had never experienced such a deep and honest connection with anyone before. She began to trust him not just as a friend and mentor, but as someone who truly saw her for who she was. Their shared experiences in the mountains had created a foundation of mutual respect, admiration, and care. Clara also began to think about her past in a new light. The rejection she had faced from Thomas, which once felt devastating, now seemed like a turning point that had led her to this life. She understood that what she had considered a failure was actually an opportunity, an opening that allowed her to discover her strength, independence, and true self-worth. The mountains had given her not just a new environment, but a new perspective. She realized that love, respect, and fulfillment were not dependent on someone else's approval, but on her own courage, determination, and choices. One evening, as the camp settled around the fire, Clara reflected on her journey. She had arrived in the mountains as someone unsure of herself, carrying the weight of rejection and self-doubt. Now, she was a woman who had faced countless challenges, learned valuable skills, and earned the respect of her community. She had discovered her own strength, her resilience, and her ability to navigate both physical and emotional obstacles. Clara felt a sense of pride and satisfaction that she had never experienced before, knowing that she had transformed her life through effort, courage, and determination. Clara also realized that her life in the mountains was teaching her about the importance of balance between work and rest, independence and connection, challenge and joy. She had learned that strength was not only physical but also emotional and mental, and that true fulfillment came from embracing all aspects of life. She felt grateful for the mountains, for the community, and for the people who had supported her, especially Jack. Their friendship had become a source of comfort, encouragement, and inspiration, reminding her that genuine connection was built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. As Part 4 came to a close, Clara had reached a new level of growth and self-awareness. She was no longer the woman who had doubted herself, feared rejection, or sought validation from others. She was confident, skilled, and independent. She had faced physical, emotional, and social challenges and had emerged stronger and more capable than she had ever imagined. Clara understood that her journey was ongoing, and that the mountains would continue to offer new lessons, challenges, and opportunities for growth. She felt ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, knowing that she had the strength, resilience, and heart to navigate any path. The mountains had become Clara's home in every sense of the word. Over the months, she had grown stronger, more skilled, and confident in ways she had never imagined when she first arrived. The woman who had stepped off the train, uncertain, and carrying the pain of rejection, was gone. In her place stood a capable, self-reliant woman who had earned respect through hard work, courage, and determination. Clara had proven to herself that she could thrive in a place where effort mattered more than appearances, and she had discovered a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. One crisp morning, Clara awoke to the sound of birds singing and the soft glow of the sun filtering through the trees. She had plans to work in the camp as usual, but today felt different. She had a quiet sense of anticipation in her heart, a feeling that she had reached a turning point. Over the months, she had become a trusted member of the camp. The men relied on her skill, judgment, and courage. She had taken on leadership responsibilities, guiding small teams, solving problems, and ensuring safety during difficult tasks. Clara's confidence had grown to the point where she no longer doubted her abilities or questioned her worth. Her relationship with Jack had also blossomed. Their bond had grown steadily, built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. Jack had seen Clara at her most uncertain and at her strongest, and he admired her determination, kindness, and spirit. Clara, in turn, appreciated Jack's wisdom, patience, and steady support. They had become more than friends. They had become partners in work and in life, supporting each other through every challenge and celebrating each success together. The quiet moments they shared, whether sitting by the fire or walking through the forest, had become the most meaningful parts of her days. The camp faced a new challenge when a major logging contract required them to process a record amount of timber in a short time. The work would be demanding, requiring long hours, precision, and teamwork. Clara accepted the challenge eagerly, seeing it as an opportunity to prove how far she had come. She coordinated with her team, assigning tasks based on each worker's strengths and ensuring everyone worked safely and efficiently. Her leadership skills were evident, and the men responded to her guidance with respect and trust. Clara realized that she had become an integral part of the camp, not because of her appearance or gender, but because of her skill, determination, and dedication. During this period of intense work, Clara faced moments of fatigue and doubt, but she refused to give in. She reminded herself of the long journey she had undertaken, from the rejection she experienced with Thomas to her arrival in the mountains, from the first days of struggle in the camp to her growing skill and confidence. Each memory reinforced her resilience and determination. She knew that she had earned her place and that she could handle whatever challenges lay ahead. Her mind and body worked in harmony, and she found satisfaction in the rhythm of labor, the cooperation of her team, and the tangible results of her efforts. One afternoon, after a particularly long day, Clara and Jack took a brief moment to rest near a stream. The water sparkled in the sunlight, and the forest was filled with the gentle sounds of nature. Clara felt a sense of peace, knowing that she had come so far. Jack looked at her and smiled. "You've changed so much, Clara," he said softly. "I've seen you face every challenge, learn every skill, and grow stronger than you ever imagined." "I'm proud of you." Clara felt a warmth in her heart that was different from pride or accomplishment. It was the quiet joy of being truly seen, respected, and appreciated. She realized that her journey had not only transformed her life, but had also shaped her relationships in ways she had never expected. The success of the logging contract brought celebration to the camp. Everyone worked together, laughed together, and shared stories of perseverance and triumph. Clara felt a deep sense of belonging and gratitude. She reflected on the journey that had brought her here, the pain of rejection, the courage to leave her small town, the determination to learn and grow, and the bonds she had formed with the people in the camp. She realized that her life had been transformed not by luck, but by her choices, effort, and refusal to be defined by anyone else's expectations. Clara also recognized the personal growth she had achieved. She had developed not only physical strength and practical skills, but also emotional resilience and self-confidence. She had learned to trust herself, to face fear, and to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth. She understood that true fulfillment came from within, from living authentically, acting with integrity, and valuing oneself for who they truly were. The mountains had taught her lessons she could not have learned anywhere else, and she felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey. As the seasons changed, Clara and Jack's bond deepened further. They spent evenings sharing stories, teaching each other new skills, and enjoying the simple pleasures of mountain life. Jack often helped Clara refine her techniques, while Clara brought new perspectives and ideas to their work. Their companionship had grown into a partnership rooted in mutual respect, admiration, and care. Clara realized that she had found a connection built not on superficial appearances, but on shared effort, values, and understanding. It was a love grounded in reality, respect, and the shared experience of life's challenges. One day, the camp faced an unexpected emergency. A landslide had blocked one of the main trails, making it impossible to transport timber safely. Clara and Jack were part of a small team assigned to clear the path and ensure the safety of the crew. The task was difficult and required careful planning, coordination, and physical effort. Clara took the lead in organizing the team, assigning tasks based on each person's abilities, and ensuring everyone followed safety protocols. Her quick thinking, skill, and calm demeanor made a significant difference, allowing the team to clear the trail efficiently and safely. The experience reinforced Clara's confidence and sense of responsibility. She realized that she had become someone capable of facing unexpected challenges, making decisions under pressure, and leading others effectively. Her journey from a woman rejected for her size to a respected and capable member of the camp was complete in the sense that she had proven to herself what she was capable of achieving. She no longer relied on validation from others. Her self-worth was firmly rooted in her actions, choices, and character. As the workdays continued, Clara also found time to nurture her personal life. She spent quiet moments with Jack, exploring the mountains, sharing meals, and enjoying conversations that deepened their bond. Their companionship had grown into love, not the fleeting or superficial kind, but a profound connection built on trust, respect, and shared experience. Clara realized that this love was different from the one she had sought with Thomas. It was genuine, mutual, and grounded in reality. Jack valued her for her courage, intelligence, and heart, not for how she looked or what society expected. The realization brought Clara a deep sense of contentment. She understood that true happiness came from embracing one's own journey, cultivating self-respect, and finding people who appreciated and supported one's true self. The mountains had given her all of this and more. They had provided a space where she could grow, learn, and discover her strengths. They had offered a community that valued her contributions and character. And they had introduced her to Jack, a partner who saw her fully and loved her for who she was. As Clara reflected on her journey, she thought about the young woman who had arrived at the train station months ago, carrying hope, fear, and the weight of rejection. That woman would hardly recognize the person she had become. Clara had faced challenges, learned new skills, built meaningful relationships, and discovered her own strength. She had transformed her life through effort, resilience, and courage. And she had learned the most important lesson of all, that self-worth and happiness cannot be determined by others, but by one's own choices, actions, and beliefs. The story of Clara's journey in the mountains was one of growth, perseverance, and love. She had faced rejection, fear, and uncertainty, but she had emerged stronger, more capable, and more confident. She had discovered the value of hard work, the importance of community, and the depth of genuine love and companionship. Clara's life had been transformed not by someone else's approval, but by her own courage, determination, and belief in herself. By the end of her first year in the mountains, Clara had achieved a sense of fulfillment she had never thought possible. She had grown into a woman who was independent, respected, and loved for who she truly was. Her bond with Jack had strengthened into a deep partnership, and she had found a community that valued her contributions and character. Clara's journey was a testament to the power of perseverance, self-respect, and courage. She had faced rejection and hardship, yet she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more confident than ever before. Looking out over the mountains, Clara felt a sense of peace and gratitude. She had discovered that true happiness came not from fitting someone else's expectations, but from embracing one's own strengths, pursuing meaningful work, and cultivating genuine relationships. She had learned to trust herself, to face challenges with courage, and to value the people and experiences that truly mattered. The mountains had given her a life she could be proud of, a life full of growth, love, and fulfillment. Clara knew that her journey was far from over, but she also understood that she was ready for whatever the future might bring. She had discovered her own strength, proven her resilience, and found love and friendship in the most unexpected place. She had transformed rejection into opportunity, fear into courage, and uncertainty into confidence. And as she stood among the mountains, feeling the cool breeze on her face and watching the sunlight dance through the trees, Clara knew that she had truly found her place in the world.